In full-throated battle cry, fighters charge out from their hidden positions. For the moment, however, their enemy is imagined and their rifles aren't real. They're new recruits, but they have no doubts about what they're training for.
If I have to, yeah, I'm prepared to kill. My main target is like to become a military doctor, but if I have to, so I think I will do that.
If I choose to kill the people, that's not because of the hate of the soldier. So I focus. I need to protect my family and my people.
Watching carefully for military spotter planes, they're drilled on an open-air parade ground, put through their paces in the baking heat to teach them to follow orders, experience hardship and work together. No allowances for the female recruits. These are skills which will keep them alive. And before they can break for food, the Pledge of Allegiance to the People's Defence Force. Since the new conscription laws came into force, thousands of young men and women have come down into the jungles to join the pro-democracy forces. They'd rather fight against the military junta than join their ranks. The military has been showing off its new conscripts too, marching to the beat of a brass band. But new laws forbidding men from working overseas indicates they're struggling to fill their ranks. The armfuls of fresh supplies handed out in front of the cameras contrast with stories from new recruits who say basic equipment is in short supply. And the PDF have a secret weapon. Aung San, the general who freed Myanmar from British rule. The actor who played him in a recent film about his life, now training new recruits.
This forced conscription makes resistant forces stronger. No one accepts their order, so youths are now joining the People's Defence Force instead of being conscripted by the military. We have seen many more youths join since then.
No brass bands here. These are volunteers, paying in sweat and hardship for their belief in a democratic future. A belief for which they say they're prepared to lay down their lives. Tony Cheng, Al Jazeera, Eastern Myanmar.
And in Tony's final report from Eastern Myanmar, he'll look at the People's Defence Force, or the PDF, and the fighters who are taking on the junta. Well, we can now speak to John Quinley, who's the Director of Fortify Rights. That's an NGO focusing on human rights in Myanmar, joining us from Bangkok. Welcome to Al Jazeera. I understand that you were recently in Karenni State in Myanmar. Tell us what you saw.
Yeah, that's correct. Thanks for having me today. I was recently, a few months back, in Karenni State in liberated areas that were liberated by the resistance forces. The time when I was in Karenni State, actually one of the large announcements about forced conscription was made by the military junta. I was speaking to KNDF forces at that time, and one of them said, you know, this is actually a really good thing for us. The people that are on the fence, the young men, women that are on the fence that may not want to join resistance forces are now going to join in big troves. And so what you have now is young men, young women going up into the liberated areas and joining the armed resistance to fight for democracy and human rights. Those that aren't joining resistance forces are fleeing the country. So you have refugee flows into Mae Sot and up along the Thai-Myanmar border. You also have refugee flows on the Bangladesh-Myanmar border. And we would call on those governments to welcome refugees, and particularly those fleeing the forced conscription.
Right, and those refugees who have fled due to the conscription order, what have they told you?
Yeah, we've been speaking to people that have gone into hiding or fled across the border. I mean, they're fleeing. In a lot of countries, conscription is legal. You know, states can conscript forces, but the problem in Myanmar is the military is an illegal regime. They're attacking their own people. We've documented what amounts to crimes against humanity and war crimes. That means murder, abduction, enforced disappearance. A slew of airstrikes throughout the country. And so the men and women that are fleeing, don't want to be a part of the Myanmar military, because the Myanmar military has been oppressing its own people for decades now. And until there's accountability, they will keep attacking the civilian population and the ethnic resistance armies. Our team at Fortify Rights is actively trying to speak to people that have crossed into Thailand, that have gone into hiding in Myanmar. Recently on the Bangladesh-Myanmar border, I spoke to 2 Rohingya men that had been conscripted for 10 days, gone through military training in Mongda Township in western Myanmar in Rakhine State, and they fled to Bangladesh and became refugees in Bangladesh. And they told my colleagues and I at Fortify Rights how they didn't want to work for the illegal military, and that, you know, the military in 2016, 2017 actually committed genocidal acts against the Rohingya people, and now are trying to forcibly recruit them in Rakhine State. So these young men fled and now are seeking shelter in Bangladesh.
Right, and when they go to countries like Bangladesh or even Thailand, where you speak to us from, how are these countries dealing with those people from Myanmar who are fleeing conscription orders?
Yeah, the Thai government is welcoming some refugees. We've noticed a decrease in pushbacks along the Thai-Myanmar border. We would encourage the Thai authorities to continue to accept refugees, especially along the Mae Sot, especially into Mae Sot, where a lot of people are fleeing now. You know, Thailand has an obligation not to refall refugees back to their places where they could experience ongoing persecution. In the past, we've documented how Thai authorities have pushed back refugees, destroyed bridges that refugees use, makeshift bridges that they use to be able to cross the border. We've also documented how Thai authorities in Mae Sot have extorted refugees and sometimes detained them. So we really urge the new Thai government, which is a lot more progressive government than the Prayut government before, which was a dictatorship, to be able to put into policy rights-respecting policies for refugees. That includes allowing them freedom of movement, right to work, you know, ID cards, and protections under the law.
Okay, thank you so much, John Quinley. Thanks for joining us from Bangkok.
Thank you very much.
Make sure to subscribe to our channel to get the latest news from Al Jazeera.